Hey y'all, today we are making homemade mushroom powder. Okay, so I am using Chanterelle mushrooms today. I have 4 gallon size bags, so 4 gallons of mushrooms essentially. You know, that's about how many we have. This is what I'm doing. You can do any kind of mushrooms that you want to do. This is what I had, fresh picked. So this is what I'm going to use. Super, super easy. You can use it in all kinds of stuff, but just make sure if you go out and pick your own mushrooms that you know what you're looking for. Lots of mushrooms look really similar, so disclaimer, don't go out and pick your own mushrooms unless you know what you're doing. All right, so I cleaned the mushrooms up really good, brushed them off, got all the dirt and ick off of them, even found a tiny little snail in there, y'all. And then once I did that, I'm going to go ahead and just chop these up to where they're going to lay flat. Doesn't really matter how big the pieces are as long as, you know what I mean? Like they're all about the same thickness anyway, except for the stem part. And I just cut it pretty thin because they're kind of, thick. But as long as you can get it to lay flat, it'll still dehydrate at the same rate, the little leafy parts. So I am just, like I said, I'm going to go through here and I'm going to dice up all of these mushrooms. Now, I did weigh mine for something that I was doing for my family. They had questions. But if you want to know, this 1 gallon bag of mushrooms weighed about 1.5 pounds, and it dehydrated down to about 1.5 ounces. But these mushrooms, y'all, were picked by my little daddy on his property. I went over the weekend and we went out, and y'all know I've got this broken ankle I'm working with, so daddy let me supervise while he went out and picked mushrooms. And like I said, we got a very large amount of these mushrooms, and daddy sat and talked all about what they are, how to find them, all the things. So video is going to be up on my other channel pretty soon if you're interested in the process behind the process, just letting y'all know. So anyway, all I'm doing, like I said, is dicing up all of the mushrooms, and I put as many as I could fit into my little small dehydrator. But if you have a bigger dehydrator, then you can fit a lot more than me. But I was able to fit 1 gallon bag for each cooking that I did in the dehydrator. That's how much my 5 trays held. So once you've gotten all your mushrooms sliced and diced and all the things put in your dehydrator, I turned mine on 125 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to let that go until they're completely dried out. I started this like on an evening, and I let them go all night and part of the next day. I wanted to make sure they were absolutely completely dried out. So depending on your dehydrator, how thick your mushrooms are, all the things, your environment will determine how fast your mushrooms dehydrate. So once I got them all dehydrated, I always do this when I dehydrate something like this. I put it all onto a parchment lined cookie sheet because I want them to cool down completely, because I don't want to try to powder them or store them for that matter if they're warm, because we don't want to create any moisture since we just took all the moisture out. And yes, if you're new here, my silicone mats are stained from blueberries. I've gotten a lot of really good tips on how to clean my silicone mats to get the stains off of them, but I haven't had time to do it yet. So y'all know I'm just living on a wing and a prayer over here. So again, just take all your little mushrooms. And again, I will say you don't have to use Chanterelle mushrooms for this. You can use any kind of mushrooms that you like. And for anybody, I am going to put a printable recipe link. It's not really a recipe, but a printable link down in the description box so that y'all will have the temperature and all those things. But if you're wondering what is the point of this, if you've been here for a little while, y'all know that I use mushroom powder sometimes in things that I cook just to give it a little extra flavor. And I also make my vegetarian, vegan beef broth using mushroom powder. Now, I haven't tried it with these mushrooms because I just did this, But that's what I use mushroom powder for. So you can look up, though, like Google uses for mushroom powder and find tons of different things that you can do with this. So that is my mushrooms all crumbly and completely dehydrated, and now I'm just going to let them cool down completely. It doesn't take very long because this isn't a real large amount. So I let them sit there for 30 minutes or an hour. Now I've got more in the dehydrator, and that green bowl is still full of mushrooms. So I'm going to be at this for a while. But once I get my mushrooms all dehydrated down, now you can store them just like this if you want to. However, a lot of the things that I read and saw and all the stuff when I was researching says that mushrooms don't always rehydrate very well. Sometimes they get a weird texture if you're going to try to use them in something quick. But if you're going to use them in something like a soup that you're going to cook for a very long time, you know, something like that, then I have read again that mushrooms would be good in something like that because it gives them a really long time to rehydrate and, you know, kind of soak up the things around it or whatever. So, but I'm powdering it today. That's what we're doing today. I'm not keeping any whole ones, but you can store whole ones if you want to and just powder it as you need it also. Because y'all know Darcy over on the Purposeful Pantry, she always says that powders don't keep as long as like bigger pieces of things. I don't know if that holds true for mushrooms, but from what she says, that does hold true for most things. So if you're doing a very large amount, then I would say maybe store the majority of them in, you know, just whole, dehydrated but whole, and then just powder what you need. So, you know, there's my advice. That's what I'm gonna do. So once I get everything blended, I always put it through this fine mesh strainer just to make sure I don't have any big clumps in there. This blender that I use is a Ninja smoothie maker, and the blades sit up really high. And so sometimes, especially when I have small amounts of stuff, I can't always get it as fine as I want it to be. So, you know, do the best you can with what you have. I also do have a, what's it called? Spice grinder, like a coffee bean grinder. Well, I think it was marketed as a coffee bean grinder, but I use it for spices. I use it for stuff like this that I'm powdering, especially when I'm making like garlic powder, onion powder, my paprika, stuff like that, because it does get it to a very fine powder. But I'm going to just put this back in my little blender cup, and I'm going to blend it a little bit more, and I'm just going to keep going until I get it as fine as I want it to be. But again, do it whatever way works for you. But you do need some sort of a high-speed blender. I think even the people have said like the Vitamix, like even though it's really big, it does a really good job at this too. So that is what our mushroom powder looks like. Again, like I said a while ago, I was weighing this, so I wanted to pull my kitchen scale out. I didn't want to have to, you know, to not do it for the video and go back in there. I figured y'all wouldn't mind if I was weighing my stuff, right? And then I forgot to zero my scale out. So, you know, here we are, mistakes and all, right? So, anywho, I'm just weighing this out. Like I said, my 1.5 pounds of mushrooms dehydrated down to about 1.5 ounces. You know, it goes, you know, but a little bit goes a long way. You're not going to use this whole jar on anything. Like, it's going to last you a while. I actually added some mushroom powder to the spaghetti sauce that I made on a video, I think last week. Just to give you an idea of something you can use it in. It just gives things really good flavor, y'all. But I hope that y'all enjoyed this, and I hope that y'all are going to make some mushroom powder of your own. Now, if y'all are interested in the behind the scenes and the going out in the woods and picking the mushrooms, if that's something that y'all enjoy, make sure that you check out my other channel. It's linked in the description box below, because all of that will be up very soon on my other channel. But I ended up with the 4 gallons. I ended up with 2 8-ounce jars full of mushroom powder. So there you go. All right, that is all I have for y'all today, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.